Last weekend I went to a Ninja Warrior gym to jump around on the trampoline. When I was there, dozens and dozens of children started to show up and to play. And sometimes they were playing, with one of their fathers, would join in the activities. But a lot of times it was just a bunch of children, some of whom knew each other, some of whom didn't, playing around and exploring, a number of different types of movements, from the trampolines to the ropes uh, to the other various activities that they have in the gym. Uh, you know, Jumping, from a trampoline into a pit, jumping on a trampoline and shooting baskets, playing dodgeball. They had another pit where you could run and do flips into whatever you're able to do into a pit. They had, an overhead ropes course, almost like a, mini trapeze. They had, the most popular thing seemed to be, climbing on the nets and trying to swing from swing to swing. So there were a lot of different activities, and the children were exploring all of them, and there was virtually no instruction. The apparatus afforded different movements, and the children learned those movements or explored those movements quite quickly without need for a lot of instruction or feedback. They simply, watched other people and kind of fit in and figured it out for themselves through trial and error. And every child that was there was smiling widely, having a great time, and they were engaged in physical activity for the duration of their time there, usually an hour, sometimes more. And so that's different than what often happens in a youth sports environment, where you stand and listen to a coach. Maybe you do some stationary stretching, static stretching, where you're not really active. You have to follow the coach's directions. You don't get time for trial and error. You don't get time to explore different movements. And it's just, the two environments are juxtaposed against each other. And, in many ways, it's easy to see why a child would prefer, just being able to run freely in this gym and try out a number of different activities. There was no winning and losing. There were no parents yelling and screaming, at the children. There was no coach yelling and screaming at the children. It was a positive environment. Everybody was having fun, and everybody was active. And ultimately, that's what we should desire out of our youth sports experience: is that everybody, is positive, everybody's having fun, and everybody's active. Those kind of should be the three minimums that we think of, in terms of a youth sporting activity, or some kind of youth physical activity. And so, the more I watched these children, I was like, man, this would be a better experience to do this every single week, until they got bored of it, than to actually play a youth sport, which is in some ways disconcerting to me as somebody who coaches youth sport and is involved in youth sports, to think that there are these activities kind of outside of a sporting activity that actually are probably more beneficial, both from a psychological and a physical standpoint, to these children. And so I think as we criticize our lazy youths and stuff like that, we need to think about what are we doing as the adults who are involved in the sports activities, to drive the children away, and what can we do to take lessons from things like the Ninja Warrior gym, and other, skateboarding and video games, and how can we learn from these activities that are drawing the attention of children, and how can we take the lessons from these activities and put them into our youth sports environment? How can we make it more active? How can we make it more positive? How can we make it more fun? How can we allow them to learn through trial and error? How can we create the affordances where they can explore the environment on their own without having to rely on, a coach, or be told that there's only one certain way to do something? So I think I think it's a great opportunity. Anybody who has a chance to go to someplace like this, with especially a child, but the adults were having fun as well, and so to explore different movements and to have fun. And again, I think that we need to learn from these environments, as opposed to criticizing them as something that's not serious or not sports or whatever criticisms we may have of that type of gym. So learn from, take the best practices and see if we can put those into youth sports, so that we can motivate more youth to stay engaged in youth sports and develop within a youth sports environment.